Look who's back, playing Oblivion. Alright, let's refresh my memory. Let's refresh my memory quickly on controls. Activate, space, lift out, cast, starting weapon, sneak. Left control. Oh, alright, okay. Move, jump, change view, journal. Return. Alright. I think it's nighttime, but that's no. Aww. Dude, steal all the things. There's a book. Manual of Spellcraft. Let's see. Ooh. Game at dinner. Ooh, alchemy. By an anonymous spy. Forward from the publisher. The history behind this letter is almost as interesting and dark as the story it tells. The original letter to the mysterious Dahaud was copied and began circulating around the ashlands of Varvendell a few months ago. In time, a print found its way to the mainland in Prince Helseth's outside Almalexia. While the reader may conclude, after reading this letter, that the prince would be furious about such a work, impugning his highness with great malevolence, quite the reverse was true. The prince and his mother had it privately printed into bound copies and sent to libraries and booksellers throughout Morrowind. As a matter of record, the prince and queen have not officially stated whether the work is a work of pure imagination based on an actual occurrence. Strauss has publicly announced the work, and indeed no one named Duhain, despite the suggestions in the letter, has ever been linked to the house. We leave the reader to interpret the letter as he or she believes. Pardon me, grabbing medicine from my head. We leave the reader to interpret the letter as he or she believes. Dear Dark Liege Duhain, you asked for a detailed description of my experience last night and the reasons for my plea to house arrest for another assignment. I hope I have served you well in my capacity as informant in the court of Prince Helseth, a man who I have stated in many previous reports could teach Molag Bal how to scheme. As you know, I've spent nearly a year working my way into his inner circle of advisors. He was in need of friendship when he first arrived in Morrowind and eagerly took to me and a few others. Still, he was disinclined to trust any of us, which is perhaps not surprising, given his tenuous position in Morrowind society. For your unholiness's recollection, the prince is the eldest son of Baranzia, who was once the queen of Morrowind and once the queen of the High Rock Kingdom of Wayrest. At the death of her husband, Prince Helseth's stepfather, King Eadwire, there was a power struggle between the prince and Eadwire's daughter, the Princess Elsana. Though details of what transpired are imperfect, it is clear that Elsana won the battle and became queen, banishing Helseth and Baranzia. Baranzia's only child, Morgaya, had already left court to marry and become queen of Summererst Isle in the kingdom of Somerset. Baranzia and Helseth crossed the continent to return to Morrowind only last year. They were well received by Baranzia's uncle, our current king, Hlaathyn Lelfen, these wonderful names, who had taken the throne after Baranzia's abdication more than 40 years ago. Baranzia made it clear that she had no designs on reclaiming the throne, but merely to retire to her family estates. Helseth, as you know, has lingered in the royal court, and many have whispered that while he lost the throne to Wayrest, he does not intend to lose the throne of Morrowind at Lothan's death. I keep your unholiness informed of the prince's movements, meetings, and plots, as well as the names and characters of his other advisors. As you may recall, I've often thought that I was not the only spy in Helseth's court. I told you before that a particular Dunmer, counselor of Helseth, looked like a fellow I had seen in the company of Tholar Sarioni. the archcanon of the tribunal temple. Another, a young Nord woman, has been verified to visit the imperial fortress in Balmora. Of course, in their cases, they might well have been on Helsa's own business, but I couldn't be certain. I had begun to think myself paranoid as the prince himself, when I found myself doubting the sincere loyalty of the prince's chamberlain, Burgess, a Breton. Oh god, I'm actually kind of tired. A Breton who had been in his employ since his days in the court of Weyras. That is the background. That night, yesterday morning, I received a curt invitation to dine with the prince. Based only on my own paranoia, I dispatched one of my servants, who was the good and loyal servant of House Dress, to watch the palace and report back anything unusual. Just before dinner, he returned and told me what he had witnessed. A man cloaked in rags had been given entrance into the palace and had stayed there for some time. When he left, my servant saw his face beneath the cloak. An alchemist of infamous repute, said to be leading suppliers of exotic poisons. A fine observer, my servant also noticed that the alchemist entered the palace smelling of wick-wheat, bitter green, and something alien and sweet. When he left, he was odorless. He had come to the same conclusion as I did. The prince had procured ingredients to prepare a poison. Bitter green alone is deadly when eaten raw, but the other ingredients suggested something far deeper. As your unholiness can doubtless imagine, I went to dinner that night, prepared for any eventuality. All of Prince Helsa's other counselors were in attendance. I noticed they were all slightly apprehensive. Of course, I imagined that I was in a nest of spies, and all knew of the prince's mysterious meeting. It is just as likely that someone knew of the alchemist's visit, while others were simply concerned by the nature of the prince's invitation, and still others merely unconsciously adopted the tense disposition of their fellow better-informed counselors. The prince, however, was in fine mettle, and soon had everyone relaxed and at ease. At 9, we were all ushered into his dining hall, where the feast had been laid out. And what a feast! Honeyed gore-apples, fragrant stews, roasts in various blood sauces, every variety of fish and fowl, expertly and ostentatiously prepared. Crystal and gold flagons of wine, Flynn, Sheen, and Metz, were at our seat to be savored as appropriate with each course. As tantalizing as the aromas were, it occurred to me that in such a maze of spices and flavors, a discreet poison would be undetectable. Throughout the meal, I maintained the illusion of eating the food and drinking the liquor, but I was surreptitious and swallowed nothing. Finally, the plates and food were cleared from the table, and a tureen of spicy broth was laid at the center of the banquet. The servant who brought it retired, closing the banquet hall door behind him. "Smells divine, my prince," said the Marchioness Colgar, the Nord woman. "But I cannot eat another thing. Your Highness," I added, feigning a tone of friendliness and slight intoxication. "You know that everyone at this table will gladly die to put you in the Morrowind, but is it really necessary that we gorge ourselves to death?" The others at the table agreed with appreciative groans. Prince Helsa smiled. "I swear by Bernadette, my dark liege, even you have never seen a smile such as this one. Ironic words, you see. An alchemist visited me today, some you already know. He showed me how to make a marvelous poison and its antidote. A most potent poison, excellent for my purposes. No restoration spell will aid you once you've ingested it. Only the antidote and the tureen will save you from certain death. And what a death, from what I've heard. I am eager to see its effect. Are all the alchemists promised? It should be horribly painful for the afflicted, but quite entertaining." No one said a word. I could feel my heart beating hard in my chest. "Your Highness," said Alarat, "the Dunmar suspected the alliance. Have you poisoned someone at this table?" "You are very astute, Alarat," said Prince Helsa, looking at the table, eyeing each of his advisors carefully. "Little wonder I value your counsel, as I indeed value all this in the room. It would be, perhaps, easiest for me to say who I haven't poisoned. I haven't poisoned any who serve but one master, any whose loyalty to me is sincere. I haven't poisoned any person who wants to see King Helsa on the throne of Morrowind. I haven't poisoned anyone who isn't a spy for the Empire, the Temple, the House of Telvanni, the House of Redoran, the House of Dori, the House of Dress. Your Unholiness," he looked directly at me at his last word. I know that, in certainty, my face is practiced at keeping my thoughts from showing, but I immediately thought of every secret meeting I've had, every coded message I've sent to you in the house, my dark liege. What could he know? What could he, even without knowing, suspect? I felt my heart beating faster. Was it fear or poison? I couldn't speak, certain that my voice would betray my calm facade. Those loyal to me who wish harm on my enemies may be wondering how I can be certain that the poison has been ingested. Is it possible that the guilty party, or dare I say parties which suspicion merely pretend to eat and drink tonight? Of course. But even the crassiest pretenders would have to raise a glass to his and put empty forks or spoons in their mouths to play the charade. The food, you see, was not poisoned. The cups and cutlery were. You did not partake out of fear. You were poisoned just the same, and sadly missed an excellent roast. Sweat beaded from my face, and I turned from the prince so he would not see. My fellow advisers, all of them, were frozen in their seats. From the Marchioness Colgar, white with fear, to Kema Inebe, visibly shaking, from the furrowed, angry brow. Couldn't help but thinking then, could the prince's entire council be comprised of nothing but spies? Was there any person at the table loyal? And then I thought, what if I were not a spy myself? Would I trust Houthulf to know that? No one knows better than his advisers both the death of the prince's paranoia and the utter incomplacability of his ambition. If I were not a spy for House Dress, even then would I be safe? Could a loyalist be poisoned because of a not-so-innocent misjudgment? The others must have been thinking the same, loyalists and spies alike. When my mind whirled, I could hear the prince's voice addressing all assembled. The poison acts quickly. The antidote is not taken within 1 minute from now. There will be death at the table. I couldn't decide whether I'd been poisoned or not. My stomach ached. But I reminded myself it might have been the result of sitting at a sumptuous banquet and not partaking. My heart shook in my chest, and a bitter taste like trauma root on my lips. Again, was it fear of poison? These are the last words you will hear if you are disloyal to me. Still smiling, that damned smile as watched his advisers take the antidote and live. Could I believe him? I thought what I knew of the prince and his character. Would he kill a self-confessed spy at his court? Or would he rather send the vanquished back to his masters? The prince was ruthless, but either possibility was within his manner. Surely the theatricality of this whole dinner was meant to be a presentation to instill fear. What would my ancestors say if I joined them after sitting at a table, eventually dying of poison? What would they say if I took the antidote, confessing my allegiance to you and the house dress, summarily executed? And I confess, I thought of what you might do to me even after I was dead. I had grown so lightheaded and filled with my own thoughts that I didn't see the Burgess jump from his seat. I was only suddenly aware that he had the tureen in his hands and was gulping down the liquid within. There were guards all around, though I never noticed them interesting. Burgess, said Prince Helseth, still smiling, you have spent some time at Ghostgate. House Redoran? You didn't know? Burgess laughed sourly. No, house. I report to your stepsister, the Queen of Wayrest. I've always been in her employ. By Akatosh, you poisoned me because you thought I was working for some damnable dark elves? You're half right, said the prince. I didn't guess for who you were working for, or even that you were a spy, but you were wrong about me poisoning you. You poisoned yourself when you drank from the tureen. Your Unholiness, you don't need to hear how the Burgess died. I know that you may have seen much over the many, many years of your existence, but you truly don't want to know. I wish I could erase the memory of his agonies from my own mind. The council was dismissed shortly thereafter. I do not know if Prince Helseth knows or suspects that I, too, am a spy. I do not know how many others last night, were as close as I was drinking from the tureen before Burgess did. I only know that if Prince does not suspect me now, he will. I cannot win at the games he mastered long ago at the court of Wayrest. I beg your Unholiness, my dark liege Dorhen, to use your influence in the house dress and dismiss your loyal servant from this charge. Fulbish's note. Of course, the anonymous writer's signature has not been on any reprint of the letter since the original. Oh, that's interesting. That actually was a really interesting story. I don't know why people don't like listening to these, hold on. Let's crouch again. Controls. Jump to the shoe. Excuse me. Return. Let's see. We got biographies. Brief history of the Empire. Ooh. The Argonian account. Book 4. Let's read this one. Decimus Scotti was drowning. He didn't think much of it. He couldn't move his arms or his legs to swim because of the paralysis spell the Argonian peasant had lobbed at him. But he wasn't quite sinking. The Unclebora River was a crashing force of white water and currents that could carry large rocks with ease, so Scotty tumbled head over heels, spinning, bumping, bouncing along. He figured that soon enough he would be dead, and that would be better than being in Black Marsh. He wasn't too panicked about it at all when he felt his lungs fill with water and cold blackness fell upon him. For a while, for the first time in some time, Decimus Scotti felt peace, blessed darkness, and then pain came to him, and he felt himself coughing, spewing water up from his belly and lungs. Roy said, "Oh, bother."